Good evening, Triveni ma'am. Namaste. Audio clear ಇದೆಯಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್? ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅನ್ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀರಾ?
ಯಾ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಇದೆ. ನಿಮಗೆ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿದೆಯಾ ನಾನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು?
Yes ma'am.
Okay.
We'll start the session exact at 5.
You have not enabled me to share the screen.
I have made you a panelist. ನೋಡಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್, ನೋಡಿ.
It says host is not enabled.
ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಹೋಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಇಲ್ಲ
I am making a co-host. ಇವಾಗ ನೋಡಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್.
Okay. Yes, now I am able to.
Yes ma'am. Ashwini ma'am will moderate the whole session, ma'am. Before that, we'll start the session exactly at 5 o'clock, ma'am.
Sure. Shall I share the screen a little later then?
Ma'am. Welcome address madadmele can start, ma'am. Session hand over ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಮಾಡಿ.
Okay.
Yes.
Good evening, Triveni ma'am.
Good evening, Ashwini. How are you?
I am good. I hope you know me. I am a student of Dr. Manasa.
Okay, very nice. Anyway, happy Navaratri to you also.
Thank you. Wish you the same, ma'am.
Thank you.
Namaste, Girish sir.
Hello, madam.
Very warm good evening to everyone. So in a couple of minutes, we are going to start the Navaratri e-lecture session. So before that, let me take the opportunity to give a brief background about our organization, Center for Education Social Studies. So CES is a governing trust which functions on towards bringing social transformation through education. Our main vision and mission is to engage research, policy advocacy, capacity building in the spheres of education and Indian management. So under the division of CES, we have a Bharatiya Management wing, so which exclusively it is an initiative center from Center for Education and Social Studies. So the CES has been working with Indian education system since its inception. So we have one of our few initiatives along with Bharatiya Management. We have a dedicated portal known as Prabandhan. So the portal acts as a knowledge management repository, which is have a collection of around 1,000 resources of research work which is done in the area of Indian management, journal articles, books, and other aspects. So, the founder and the president of the Center for Education and Social Studies, Professor M.K. Sridhar, and the director of our CES is Dr. Gaurisha. So, on behalf of CES and the CES whole team, formally, Anita ma'am will be welcoming on us. So, I welcome all the participants for this Navaratri e-lecture series. Now, coming to the main part, why this e-lecture series was initially conceptualized. What is the whole essence and or we can put it in a simple word, the importance of the lecture series. So about the whole session is it is an attempt to showcase all theoretical and industrial contribution that has done in the field of Indian management. So we thought, why not? This is the auspicious to celebrate these contributions and try to understand and enhance what are the unique practices and unique characteristics of Bharatiya style of management. So hence this lecture series aims to bring all those theoretical concepts, contributions, and the management lessons, which highlights its uniqueness. So that's the whole, the spirit of doing Navaratri e-lecture series. I hope this whole session, which is going to start from today, from the first day of Navaratri, of this Jnana Yajna. With this, I would like to render a small verse so that without any obstacles we will be able to complete this session series. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Savaprabha Nirvignam Kurme Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada. I wish all the prosperity and the success through this Jnana Yajna. Now I hand over the session to ma'am. I request do the welcome and introduce the speaker of the session for the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sindhuja ma'am, for setting the stage for the e-lecture series. And namaste to all gathered here, and good evening to Triveni ma'am and all the other. This Navaratri is the true celebration of immense knowledge that the India treasures in the form of art, history, ancient text, scriptures, and so on. So on behalf of CES and all the members present here, I take this opportunity to welcome the guest speaker for today's session, Dr. Triveni P., Professor, Ramaya Institute of Management, Bangalore. A hearty welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. I also welcome all the participants. I think the number is increasing every second. People are getting in. Thank you all the participants for joining in for this wonderful lecture series session on Navaratri. And this is the true celebration, as Madam said, the Jnana Yajna. So without much further delay, let me bring in the theme for the session today. It is Management Cues from Arthashastra. Before we begin, I take this opportunity. It is indeed my pleasure to introduce Dr. Triveni P. to the August gathering. Dr. Triveni ma'am has over 2 decades of academic and corporate experience. Presently, she is heading the research wing at Ramaya Institute of Management. She has been able to instrumental to organize several national, international conferences, FDPs, MDPs, workshops at the Institute. She is also heading the Incubation Center at Ramaya Institute of Management. Apart from that, for her exemplary services in education, she has been recipient of several awards. She has been the recipient of Nation Builder Award 2017, awarded by All India Bhavsara Kshatriya Maha Samaj. She also has been the recipient of We Lead Women Achiever Award in the year 2018. She has been the certified accredited management teacher by All India Management Association. Apart from this, Madam has to her credit several publications in peer-reviewed journals, and she has presented papers at national and international conferences, several of them. The list is, I think, never ending. So she is also the member of Board of Governance at the Institute, and she is the member of Academy of International Business at Michigan State University. So this is just the glimpse of what Madam has contributed to the field of academics and corporate world and management in a broader sense. I would say nothing could have been a better way to start this Navaratri series session, wherein Goddess Durga, she is, taken to be the deity. Okay, and we are starting the session with women speaker on the first day. So, and on the topic, which is Arthashastra, which is very, very acclaimed all over the world. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting the invitation once again. And before we begin the session, I just have a few things to be told to all the participants. Whenever you have any questions, please pose it on question answer chat box that is provided to you, and all the questions will be taken towards the end of the session by ma'am. So without much of a delay, I would request Dr. Triveni ma'am to take over the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Ashwini. It was indeed an honor to be here. Thanks to Center for Educational and Social Sciences for giving me this opportunity, and thanks to Dr. Manasa ma'am also. First and foremost, I would like to say Om Durgaya Namaha, being the Navaratri. So we would like to start praying to the Almighty, who is the supreme power as of now. For all this now 9 days, you're all aware that Durga is the main deity whom we'll be worshipping. And indeed, it was a surprise when you planned a series for Navaratri. I was thinking, oh my God, this is a very good idea, where people can look into our Indian knowledge and reflect on our repository, what is there. So keeping this in the mind, already I was working. Of course, it's a baby step that I'm putting in. I'm trying to understand Arthashastra in a different way. I'm trying to inculcate this in various management spheres that we are looking into. So as a part of this, I was working on a paper wherein I was planning to send it to Globalization of Indian Thoughts conference, which is happening in IIM Kozhikode. As a part of this, I was working on this. At the same time, Professor Sindhuja approached me, and I thought, okay, this would be a good opportunity to share my thoughts. So let's start with what I have to talk to you about, what little study that I've done. To briefly tell you about management cues from Arthashastra. When I started going through Arthashastra, it was mind-boggling to me. I saw there were so many concepts, so many new terms which I came across. Of course, in Sanskrit it was, but the terms were so very close to us, because all this is something which we have been using in management in day in and day out. That's what I was feeling. So I thought, let me work on this and understand. Of course, there are plenty of people who have been working on this. Once I started working on this, I found a lot of people working. And of course, I'll be doing wrong if I don't mention Dr. Radhakrishna Pillai in this context, whom we say is the living legend, and also the person who is considered to be another Chanakya in the form of Radhakrishna Pillai. So definitely, I was very much motivated when I have read his book Chanakya's leadership styles and all that. And he's written around 20 books. I was around 17, 18 books. I have come across a couple of them, not many. I would like to definitely read a lot of it. Just to begin with my session, I would like to introduce to you about who exactly Chanakya is. Some of them here may not be knowing, some may be knowing. Just to brush up about who Chanakya is. Chanakya, you all know, was also called as Kautilya, and his original name was Vishnugupta. And he was born way behind in 350 BCE, that is before Christ. And his birthplace was in Takshashila, and that is where he also educated himself. And he's a Brahmin by religion, and also his date of death, as per the records that I got from Google, is 275 BCE. And all of you, I'm sure many would have seen Chanakya's serial, which was being telecasted in Doordarshan. I was watching it too. So when I was watching it, I realized that he was the man behind Chandragupta Maurya, the Maurya dynasty, which was built up, and he was the person who was the key person who was helping out Chandragupta Maurya to build a Maurya dynasty. And he was the guide, philosopher, and the economist who really helped Chandragupta Maurya to rule and conquer almost more than 70%, 80% of India, and he was ruling Bharata at that point of time. And you remember that Chandragupta Maurya also served Ashoka, the great king, whom we remember because he was the one who succeeded Alexander. And at that time, Chanakya was the advisor to Ashoka. And he was also serving Bindusara, the son of Ashoka's. He was in the kingdom of Bindusara, who is the son of Ashoka. Just to go ahead, I would like to get into the next concept, where I would like to say what are the major scriptures of Chanakya, which we have to look into. His scriptures has been divided into three, that is Arthashastra, Niti Shastra, and Chanakya Niti. So if you look at Arthashastra, this is a book where we talk about how management is to be practiced. So here he talks about practice of management, and it has various instructional tone in the book. And many people say this is talking more about economics. I also feel it is having a lot of economics, but when I was looking at it from the angle of management, I thought many of management practices was there in that. Okay, that's what I have put it across over here. And when we look at Niti Shastra is the encyclopedia of political ethics. And this is where he is talking about how an ideal life should be. What is the way of leading an ideal life? I have not gone through Niti Shastra in detail, but I have heard a bit of Niti Shastra here and there through various YouTube channels. And also there is something known as Chanakya Niti. And this is a compendium of sutras, which is written by Chanakya. Okay, various sutras of Chanakya, which talks about how a person should be at different given states of mind, or at different places, at different times, how he has to be is what he's given. It's a beautiful tips to every individual. I feel every individual must read Arthashastra at least once, or read the literature of Chanakya at least once. Just to go ahead, there is something which is very important of Kautilya, which I have found it very interesting. He gives some 5 sutras. He's given 5 sutras where he talks about, if you look at our scriptures where we talk about Chaturvida Purusharthas, wherein we talk about Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So if you have to get what you want, the desire of human being, is being categorized into this 4 category. So he here, Kautilya here has given 5 sutras. Sukasya Mulyam Dharmaha. So what he says is the basis for being happy is following virtuousness or for being ethical. So he says if you want to be happy, lead a life full of virtuousness or have an ethical life is what he talks about. And he also tells about Dharmasya Moolam Arthaha. The basis for virtuousness or ethics is resources. Artha here, he talks about various resources. So whether we have the resources or not is what we have to look at. So if a person has to be virtuous or if he has to be ethical, he should have enough of resources is what he talks about. And the basis for resources is kingdom or the organization or the enterprise. So if you have to have a good Arthasya Moolam Rajyam is what he talks about. You should have a good kingdom. You should have a good organization. You should have a good enterprise is what he talks about. And going ahead, Rajya Moolam is Indriya Jayaha. So if you have to have a good organization, it is possible only when you conquer all your senses. So Indriya Jaya, we have Indriyas, Panchendriyas, Karmendriyas. So we have to look at how are we controlling our Indriyas. So once we have Indriya Nigraha, if we can control, if we are able to Nigraha our Indriyas, that is control our Indriyas, we are going to have a beautiful organization. A person who is leading an organization should know how to conquer his senses is what indirectly he talks about, which will be understanding in my future slides. And Indriya Jayasya Moolam Vinayaha. So how can a person win or conquer the senses? A person can conquer his senses by having a disciplined life. So he should train himself with certain disciplines, train himself and be disciplined is what I'm trying to tell. So a person who is planning to conquer his indriyas should, I don't want to use the word, but of course, meditation is one of the main source through which you can have hold on your senses. So he says, conquering organs is rooted in training and disciplining. So how are you disciplining yourself? How are you bringing in discipline in your life? How are you training yourself? So all this is possible by following certain regular habits and following certain routine in your life. When you do this, you are going to be very successful. So you are going to get whatever you are looking for. That is your happiness. Happiness comes when you are doing all this, when you're following these 5 sutras of Kautilya. That's what I would like to talk about. Now, looking at my main topic for today is management cues from Arthashastra. So let me start with how an organization functions. Okay, whenever we look at an organization, we always talk about an organization having a vision, an organization having a vision that it wants to work on, and there should be a motivation as well. Motivation is something which has been added by, which is there in Kautilya's Arthashastra. But let us look at modern management. In modern management, we look at what the leadership team is talking about. The leadership team talks about having commitment towards organization's core values, purpose, mission, and vision. So every organization in today's modern management, what we look at is they form a vision and they are working towards a mission. So we try to understand what is the vision and mission of an organization. Based on the vision and mission, we are able to identify what are the core values of an organization and what is the purpose of that organization. So this is what a leadership team will commit itself to in that organization. This is what in today's world we talk about. But way back in 2000, in the 350 BC, during Chandragupta Maurya's period itself, Chanakya had written about having a vision, which he called as Prabhu Shakti. Having a vision is Prabhu Shakti, mission is Mantra Shakti, and every king should be motivated. In the sense, when we say motivation, it's talking about Utsaha Shakti. What is the level of motivation? What is the level of, today we talk about proactiveness, okay? In other words, we talk about aggressiveness. Whether a person is aggressive to do something, aggressiveness is okay up to one level, but if it is too much, it's not good. Of course, we know about it. But when we talk about motivation, we are looking about how motivated is the king. The king should have that passion to drive the kingdom and bring in the changes that is expected. So need to focus on, the king should focus on leadership requirements. It also talks about organizational strategies that we look into in today's modern management, and it is based on various human dimensions. So this is what Kautilya was talking about way back in 350 in 350 BC. So he says his Kautilya's Arthashastra talks about Prabhu Shakti, he talks about Mantra Shakti, and he talks about Utsaha Shakti. When we relate it to today's modern world, we talk about the mission, and the purpose and the core values of the organization. And one more important thing that Kautilya says is how important is the goal for a king. He was talking about goals being set, that is purpose of organization should be, purpose of the king should be defined. What is he working on? So when I'm talking about a king, I'm trying to relate it with an organization. So every organization sets its own SMART goals. You all know about what is SMART goals. I'm not going to talk more about it. So SMART goals is a must for every organization. But whenever we talk about goals, we should also know that we should have a proper time management. So time management is something which has been highlighted very clearly in Kautilya's Arthashastra. What he talks about is, he says that understand the determined goal. First and foremost, the king should know what is his determined goal. And he should also note what are the various assignments that he has to be doing. And he has to prioritize the commitments. What is important should be identified. And he should check the list regularly and find out whether all the activities have been covered as per the choice that is being highlighted. So this is something which I found very interesting when we look into, I could relate it very well with what is happening today. Okay, going ahead, we'll get into the next thing. I have looked into few research work, which many of them have been working on. And there is a comparison which has been made between Kautilya and Drucker's constituents. So we look at this comparison which has been made, just for your reference. Kautilya says, Kautilya reminds his Swami, when we say Swami, it is the king, that is objective for his rule are. What is the objective? Goals. I'm talking about what a king's goal should be. It should be to acquire power. It should be to consolidate what has been acquired. It should be to expand what has been acquired and enjoy what has been acquired. A king should be one who should acquire the power. He should be able to consolidate what has been acquired from various places, wherever he is acquired, and he should be able to expand further, and he should be able to enjoy what he's been acquired. Looking at Drucker's constituents of economic performance, there are various similarities which we can look into it. Acquired power and consolidate what has been acquired talks about making present business effective. So when we say acquired power, consolidate what has been acquired, so from business perspective, I feel it's about making your business more effective. Making your present business more effective should become the main objective of any business leader. And looking at expand what has been acquired. So here we talk about identifying the potential and realizing it. So we should know what is the actual potential market outside. What is the potential for your product? What is the potential for your service outside? And you should be able to realize how you can work towards it. And enjoy what has been acquired has been equivalent to making it a different business for a different future. So you should know how to roll out, how to use design thinking in your business activity and bring in some different perspectives for your business activity is what I have understood by this points of Kautilya and Drucker. Going ahead, you can see there is one other concept which is very interesting, which has been put across by Kautilya, that is about Saptanga. So whenever we talk about Saptanga, here I'm referring to the modern management and what Kautilya talks about. See, modern management, I've just put in the elements as to how it works. Seven pillars of leadership, management, and business talks about the king. The king here is the leader. The minister here is the manager in a company. The country is the market. The fortified city is the head office. That is where the office is, the main head office is. The treasury is the accounts. The army, the team. The ally is the friend or the consultant of a business. Look at the seven pillars: the king, the minister, the country, the fortified city, the treasury, the army, the ally. But looking at elements of sovereignty, the same thing which our Kautilya has put across in his works way behind is king. King is none other than the Swami. So here we talk about the leader. Amatya is the minister. Here we refer to the manager. And when we say Janapada, it is the country. So we talk about the market. The country here we are referring is to the market. Durga, or the fort, is the fortified city. That is where is the head office from where we are going to operate. And Kosha is the treasury. The treasury here we are talking about is the accounts activity that's happening. And the Danda, or the army, is the team with whom we are working. And Mitra, or the friend, we are talking about is the consultant of the business. So looking at this is how I could relate it. Of course, I want to highlight here, many work has been done on this. Some of these points have been taken from some research papers which I have listed in the end. So I have related few of these points from the research papers which I have been studying for my paper. And this point, if you look at, it's been highlighted in chapter 2 of Kautilya's Arthashastra, where he talks about the source of sovereign states of Arthashastra. And it is highlighted in the 98th chapter. And this book is really interesting. Of course, it takes time for me to complete it, but I'm going very briefly about all these things in my session today. Going ahead, the organization structure as highlighted by Kautilya. See, many of us look into different types of organization structure. We have seen now what we are following is line organization. In every company, you find it's almost in the line organization, then having a hierarchical structure. Looking at this structure, we can understand king is the head, the supreme. The king was the supreme power, and he is the source of all authority. And king is the person who appoints the Amatya or the Mantri Parishad. That is the Council of Ministries. Okay, so we look at this king followed by Amatya. Amatya is considered to be the prime minister, and Amatya operates the day-to-day machinery of the state through a council of officials. Amatya will further have officials who will be supporting him. Here we talk about the mantris, okay, the ministers, senapatis, the warlord or the defense minister, purohit, who is the chief justice, Yuvraj, the heir apparent or identified successor to the throne. This is the person who is supposed to take over the king in the future. Tirthas are nothing but they are the highest category of officials in the administration. And during that time, he was highlighting about 18 tirthas. There were 18 main highest category of officials. And then we talk about Adhyaksha. Adhyaksha is nothing but one who is ranked next to the tirtha. And during his time, he has highlighted that there were 20 Adhyakshas who will be working under the tirthas. And these people had economic and military functions. This is how Kautilya had created the organization structure. But looking at our present scenario, I'm sure you are able to relate it with our country as well as every organization. How I relate this is the king is nothing but the chief of the company, the CEO or the managing director of the company. The Amatya here, again, the CEO followed by MD, or we can see the board followed by the managing director. And then we have the chief of finance, the chief of marketing, the chief of technology, the chief of people, all others coming up, along with the people who are maintaining the organization, along with all the heads of various departments. And we have regional departments and various other heads functioning. So this is how I look into from organization perspective. And also this chart is more appropriate for a country. Okay, to remind you, Kautilya's Arthashastra talks about how to rule a country. It's giving guidance to the king. It's about giving guidance to the king. Though the perspective is about economic perspective, but I'm trying to give a business perspective, the management perspective, try to extract the management perspective from that. Okay. Now, going ahead, if you look at, we are getting into the next thing wherein we talk about how this management principles has been highlighted to the traits of leaders. We saw the different hierarchy. Now, Kautilya talks how a leader should be. Looking at modern management and Kautilya's management, there are few points which I have referred to. This one I have extracted from a research paper. So what has been highlighted here is they have referred to Stockdale of 1990 and Kautilya's work. So what he says, what Stockdale highlights is a leader should be adaptable to situation. Kautilya says a leader should have a foresight to avail himself of the opportunities by choosing the right time, place, and type of action. Know when to fight and when to make peace. Okay, this is very important what Kautilya talks about. A leader should know when exactly he has to enter the war field or when he should counteract with his enemies. If he should be able to visualize what is the right time. And coming back, alert the social environment. So a present leader should be, in modern management, we say the leader should be alert to the social environment. Kautilya says grasping, retaining, understanding, rejecting false views, and adhering to true ones. See, Kautilya says you should be able to grasp what is required in the social environment, what people are expecting, and retain his position and understand what is expected by the people around. He should be ready to get into rejections, and he should be ready to accept whatever is being suggested, is what Kautilya says. And he has to adhere to the true ones. He should be able to reject what is not right. He should be able to justify and visualize what is a false view. All these things is what a leader's quality should be as per Kautilya, which has been defined in his work. Another thing that we look into modern management is a leader should be ambitious and he should be achievement oriented. Whereas Kautilya says a leader should be quite eloquent and he should have some lofty aims. He should be having some aims or goals which he has to work on. And modern management says leaders should be very assertive, but Kautilya says leaders should always be bold. Without that, he will be finding it difficult to go ahead, is what he talks about. Now, going into the next one, continued, a leader should be cooperative, decisive, dependable, energetic, persistent, self-confident, tolerant of stress, willing to assume responsibility, is what the modern management talks about. Kautilya says leaders should first learn to listen to others. He should be listening to others. And he should also be rewarding whenever required and punish whenever required. He should know just in rewarding and punishing. He should know what he has to do. Exactly, he has to act based on the scenario, the situation, and accordingly, he has to take a decision. And leader should be disciplined, and he should not break up with his promises, and he should never be dilating his activities, is what it talks about. And leader should be always energetic. He should be quick and dexterous with all activities that he is doing. Leader should always be determined in whatever activities he's working on. And a leader should be well trained in all the arts, and he should be able to lead the army. In fact, there is a scripture where, there is a research paper where I read Ashoka, the king Ashoka, almost knew 24 languages. He had learned 24 languages at that point of time. And Chanakya himself knew 21 languages. Because once you know different languages, it's easier when you go outside and conquer them. And you can connect with the people, and you are able to expose that confidence in the person, in yourself, and bring in that confidence in the other person as well. So this is what he says. A leader should be well trained in almost all arts, and he should be able to lead the army. In fact, somewhere I was reading in Radhakrishna Pillai's book, that Chanakya was also a very good metallurgist. He knew how metals can be used. That is why he introduced the coinage, the metal coins into the system, because that's his thought. Until Kautilya introduced this, people were using barter system. But Kautilya started saying that exchange can be done through metal. So that's when he understood metallurgy. He was a thorough metallurgist, is what they say. And a leader should be able to be tolerant of stress. Here we understand that leader should always pose out patience, and he should be able to show his passion. He should be able to control his anger. He should be able to control his fickleness and control all the backbiting activities, and not pay heed on all these activities and go ahead with his mission. And leaders should be willing to assume responsibilities. Here we say he should know how to govern in normal times and in times of crisis. That is what a leader should be. And going ahead, we also see that the roles of a king, how he has highlighted. As per Kautilya, a king is considered to be a Rajrishi. So you know what is a rishi? Rishi is a person who is considered to be a sagely person. So he says kings should be leading a life like a Rajrishi, wherein we talk about a rishi is considered to be calm, cool, and he's very composed, and he knows when to talk, when not to talk. That is what a king should be, is what Kautilya says. So modern management says avoiding extremes. King should avoid extremes. He should not get into the manager. The main CEO should avoid extremes. A main manager, the CEO of the company, should be quite knowledgeable, and he should be able to gather information from various sources, and he should know how to work based on the governance, and he should be ethical in his activities, what modern management talks about. Kautilya also highlights this. He says a king should be always self-controlled, and he should be well educated in various branches of knowledge. And he should be able to understand various
I think there might be a drop in the connectivity. Let me check.
Connectivity of madam, maybe just,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
yeah,
Just call her.
yeah.
Yeah, ma'am is joining in a couple of minutes. There was a power fluctuation from her place. So I request all the participants to just have take a 1 minute patience with us. Thank you so much.
In the meantime, I request all the participants to share their thoughts in terms of the discussion points, if they want to ask anything to madam, so
Yes,
that can be taken forward.
true, true, true.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am. I'm resuming the recording. Yes.
sure. Yeah, thank you. Uh, Sorry for the inconvenience. There was some power fluctuation here. So, traits of a king is what I was talking about. He says king should be well educated and he should have a knowledge of various branches. In fact, Kautilya himself was multi-talented. He was also an astrologer. He knew astronomy as well, uh, astrology as well. Sorry, I said astronomy. No, it's astrology as well. So going ahead, a king should know how to collect information, whatever he wants. So he should have association with elders and keeping eyes open through spies. He should collect information, gather information through various sources. And also he should be observance of, he should follow dharma in a big way is what Kautilya talks about. Every activity that a king is doing should be dharma based is what Kautilya highlighted. And he should avoid association with harmful persons, indulging in harmful activities. This is a wonderful thing that I found very interesting and which is very, very relevant even today, because even today, all the characters which he's talked about is very much connected with what's happening in modern management. Also, he highlights something about decision making, how decision making is highlighted, or what is the traits of what is required for decision making as per Artha Shastra. I've just tried to connect it with few points. If you look at this, ancient Indian book starts actually with a invocation to a deity. Whereas when I started reading about Artha Shastra, it begins with an invocation to two great acharyas. These acharyas are Shukracharya and Brihaspati. I'm sure you know who is Shukracharya and who is Brihaspati. Brihaspati is the guru of the gods. The well, you all know about it, and Shukracharya is the guru of the demons or the Rakshasas, and that is Asuras. So Asuras and Devas, when we look into, he's prayed or he's mentioning his pranams to both this Shukra and Brihaspati Bhyam. So Om Namah Shukra Brihaspati Bhyam. That's something which we can look into his book. And Kautilya is considered different viewpoints of the extremes before reaching any decision. That is indication where he takes the learning of Shukracharyas and he's also taken the learnings of Brihaspati, the god, as well as the Asuras, gurus learning preachings, whatever were there, he's collected information from there and he's put it in his viewpoints. Artha Shastra is actually based on logical discussions, which is taking into considerations all kinds of ideas of various acharyas. This is only a reference. So he's taken all ideas from all these acharyas and put it across. And of course, you know, Edward de Bono, who is an expert in lateral thinking, he says that most intelligent man is the one who can look at two different contradictory viewpoints at the same time and arrive at his own decisions. You know why I'm talking about Asuras and Devas? Because there are, we are talking about Raja, we are talking about Sattva and Tamasic. So between Sattva and Tamasic, how are you going to make a decision? In between, we have Rajasic as well. So how are we taking the connect? Sattva, Tamasic, and also the Rajasic between the Trigunas, which is the one which we have to connect, is what he's been cross sectionally, cross dissection has been done, and he's brought all that viewpoints here. In fact, just to mention, it's off the records. In fact, he's also spoken about black magic, occult science, in one of his sessions, in one of the chapters, where he talks about the references of Atharva Veda, where Atharva Veda also talks about black magic. But one important thing that you should be aware of is Chanakya has used black magic, but only for the welfare of the kingdom. He's never done it for any personal gains. So that's important. So black magic works, but the way it is going to be used should be very logical and it should be based on the dharma. When it is used illogically, it will have its own reverse effect, is what he highlights in this conversation. Now, going into the next thing, I'm going to talk about how he says that a king, a leadership skill of a king should be. What is the style of leadership? Of course, if you look at today's modern management, we have servant leadership. So when we talk about servant leadership, we talk about different kind of activities that goes on. So what exactly is the servant leadership today? Many people talk about this. So intense will and humility are the most important characteristics of a leader in the 21st century. And also it talks about leaders strive to build enduring greatness through a paradoxical blend of personal humility and professional will. Jim Collins, who is authority at present on leadership skills, talks about this. Kautilya says self-discipline, integrity, courage, decisiveness, sensitivity towards others, humility, and selflessness is what a quality of a good leader should be. He says sensitive to needs, feelings, and motivation of the people leads a king to be a best king. So what he highlights about us, humility should be there and it should be taken in the right spirit. And we, the king, as a king, should try to bring in the exact meet up with the feelings of his wards, work towards his wards, and see to it that they get what they are looking for. Going into the next point, here I have collected something about time management, how a leader's time management should be. He talks about a leader is to be multitasking. So he talks about what are the things he should be focusing on. So he says in a day, if you have 24 hours, how the leader should divide his work. He says 3 hours should be given for personal activities, 1.5 hours for recreation activity, 4.5 hours for sleep, 1.5 hours for meditation, because he says meditation is very, very important, because meditation gives him intuition, meditation makes him more foresight, gives him a foresighted approach and makes him more adaptable and gives him innovative thoughts and creative thoughts to think about various situations and problems, and always raise before the sunrise and work on personal needs and palace affairs. And he talks about public audiences. In a day, a king should meet at least 1.5 hours with should spend time with the public audiences. And also he says 3 hours he should spend with the defense, 3 hours with the secret consultations, and 4.5 hours with the administration of the state. This is what is being highlighted by Pillai R. Radhakrishna Pillai in his management fundamentals in Arthashastra. Going to the next, I would like to talk about what Kautilya is talking about mantri's role, the minister's role. Okay, modern management talks about KSA, knowledge, skill, and attitude. And Kautilya says, Druda Chitta, Shilavana, Prajna, Vangmi, Daksha. These are the characteristics of a mantri, the competency of competency skills of a mantri. So if you look at this, king, a minister, a person who is ruling the organization should be quite knowledgeable, he should be quite skillful, and his attitude should always be right. That's the same thing which has been highlighted here, and he gives 5 characteristics of a person who is ruling an organization. He says he should have the power of concentration, Drudha Chitta. The Chitta should be focused. He should have that focused approach. Shilavana. So he talks about Shilavan is character. He should have a very good character. Prajna. The prajna of the individual, that the person who is managing the organization should be very good. His thinking capability should be good. All this happens through meditation is what he highlights as well. He should be a very good Vangmi. He should be a very good communicator. And he should be a very good Daksha, one who observes and who has a vigilance activity happening in his organization. This is what I would like to highlight about it. And some of the tips that he gives about various management functions, like management principles of management activities, planning. By failing to plan, you are planning to fail is what he highlights. Every organization should plan its activity. So we all study this in management of principles of management, where we talk about planning as the main activity. So he also highlights, Kautilya also highlights that if a person fails to plan,
he is really planning in his activity, he's failing in his activity. Okay, every effective performance is based on thorough preparation. So planning makes you prepare well for your performance. And a firm should be clear about its goal, and it should be having a fixed mind on its goal, and it should be flexible. The mind, of course, it should be clear about the goal, but flexibility about how you reach the goal should be there. A king should know how he should be changing his ways and means based on dharma to achieve his goal. This is what he highlights about in this thing. And the other thing that I would like to talk about is management tips that he's given about success. Okay, this is something very close to my heart, because I found these are really very good if we start implementing it in our life. The most important basis for success in any venture is pragmatism. So do not ask where the new idea came from or who thought of it first. Does it work or not? So you should just go ahead with the new idea that's come. If you feel it really works, go ahead with it. And ignorance of universal law is no excuse. So violation of this laws forces one to pay a full penalty. So keep the governance in your mind, keep the law, the legal aspects in your mind. Okay, so whenever there is an underachievement, you should know that the person should be penalized. And frustration and failure. So if you are focusing, I also take this personally into my life. I feel to be successful, we should be planning our activity and look at the various ideas that comes in our mind, in our way, and just accept it and start working. And there should be no excuse for not doing it. And one more thing that I would like to say is, every organization also should be looking at all these activities, because an organization can become more successful when it is doing its activity as per the legal requirements. Another thing he highlights here, success needs action, action needs initiatives, and for sustaining success, an initiative to collect feedback is important. So you need an action for success, and action needs initiative. So you should be getting thorough feedback about whatever you're doing. Feedback allows you to take corrective actions which sustains success. So if you have to remain in the success ladder and go ahead, you should be collecting regular feedbacks and keep working on your activities. For every effect, there is no specific cause. Okay, success is not an accident. Success is not based on chance. Success is not a matter of luck. Success is the result of well thought out action. So it's an individual who has a well thought out action who will be successful. That's what even I believe in. Okay, going to the next, we are.
Ma'am, I request you to probably close it in another few minutes so that we can.
Sure. I just have another few slides. I'm talking about different functions now. So distribution of he also highlights about finance and accounting. Here I'll just rush through this. He talks about distribution of profit, and he highlights about auditing as well, examination and auditing, which we are very much doing now. We see so many CS, and now we talk about forensic accounting, and also we talk about EPS, we talk about price earning ratio. All these things is what Kautilya's Arthashastra also has been highlighting in the earlier period itself. Okay, now looking at another aspect he talks about is, Kautilya admitted that some degree of corruption would always exist and cannot be scrutinized perfectly. Though every organization tries to manage things, but there will be some degree of corruption that comes up. And profit distribution, how he says here, is what is being followed also in today's organization. Profit or allocation should be done to charity. Charity, it should be based on the company's desire, and also the wealth, investment in future dreams, plans. This is what even today, today many of the organizations have been exhibiting all these practices, which has been highlighted by Kautilya. Tata, Infosys, Ford, and Microsoft has been adopting this principles itself. Okay, going to the next one, we'll be talking about human resource. I'm not going to get into this in detail. I just have a briefing here which talks about what are the characteristics. Sorry, I'm just trying to wind up soon, because on human resource also he's been talking on few things. Okay, oh, it's going on. So on human resource, what he talks about is, he says a person, human resource management, when we talk about, we should be looking at the character. Whenever we are talking about identifying a basic non-technical qualities of an individual, today we talk about EQ, we talk about SQ, spiritual quotient, emotional quotient. All these things are the terms which is being used in today's modern management, where they are trying to evaluate a person before they appoint. Same thing was also highlighted by him in his earlier concepts. So he says, I think we have discussed about all these things, Vagmi and Daksha already. Yuraj training, whenever a new leader is being trained, he should be trained with Artha Shastra, Niti Shastra, and also Danda Niti is what he highlights about. And also looking at international policies, how a country should be working on its international activities has been given very clearly by him. I'm not getting into the details of this. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, we are able to. Tips on international policy. That is the slide.
No, I have now moved on, because for me it's saying it's been paused.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah.
Share the screen now.
Yeah, I'm resharing. Okay, there is something known as Mandala Shastra also, which has been highlighted and which is very popular by Chanakya. He talks about how a king should plan about how he should strategize. This is about strategy again, how to maintain his enemy and friend and all that. As per Mandala Shastra, it's a big theory as such to talk about. I'm not going in detail with it. The immediate neighbor of the king is always considered to be an enemy, is what he says. And the next immediate neighbor of the enemy should be the friend of the king. So this is how he talks about Ari and Mitra Ari. This is what Mandala Shastra talks about. I'm going through, I'm not getting into this in detail because this will take its own time. And also tips on defense. He talks about how the country should be focusing on safeguarding itself. So here you can see Aparipanita is what he talks about. Akrita Chikirisha is what he talks about. Peace with no definite terms, peace with no specific ends. So this, I feel, can be related with various management activities as well. Peace with binding terms, the breaking of peace, restoration of peace broken. So to some extent, I related with some of the M&A concepts, the mergers and acquisitions. In some areas, I just try to put into, because when there is a hostile takeover, when there is a forcible takeover, what happens? How a company should merge is what I would like to relate it with. And three forms of war when we look into, he talks about open battle, he talks about treacherous battle and silent battle. I'm sure we are all witnessing this even today. We are seeing this in Israel and Palestinian happening, and we know what kind of battle that's going on and what is India trying to do over there. Looking at the next point, he talks about knowledge management, because this knowledge management is very important, and he highlights a lot about this knowledge management. There are 4 types of information that every country, every king should be looking at. Some information we get which may already be familiar to us. On other cases, in other case, we may get a half-baked resources. This is actually related with everyday activities of all of us. We keep getting so much, so many things, especially in YouTube, you keep getting so many fake videos as well. So we have to know what is to be taken up, what not is to be taken up. Sometimes we may get controversial news. First news which we received may be positive, but next time we may get a negative one. And sometimes the information reached to our end may be overloaded and may be based on gossips and rumors. And also he talks about how we try to maintain with the data that we have, the knowledge that we have. He talks about this in detail. So what he is highlighting is a person should keep thinking. And thinking brings in creativity is what he talks about, because knowledge is important and knowledge is always cumulative. And knowledge is something which is, a big asset that I feel everybody should be having. It's a major wealth, and every person is differentiated or evaluated based on the knowledge that he has. And looking into the other part, he talks about one important thing I was talking is spice. A king should have, Amatya will have the spice around. So king's 5 eyes are internal intelligence, primarily stationary deployment. He talks about who are the main spies and how all the spies will be giving him the information. This is something which he was working on in detail. And going ahead, diplomacy. Okay, I think this part is not required. We'll get into the last slide, tips on CSR. So here it says that every organization, this is what even today every company is doing. They take responsibility, they contribute to the society, they encourage people, they are working with NGOs, all these things. So these are some quotes. I'll just stop with this. Some lessons in nutshells, which is there. I will share this with you. You can share it with your people, okay? I'm not going in detail with this. Of course, the references, I have referred various papers as well as various works. These are the references. And I'm open for question and answers. I'm sorry, I think I overshot the time. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think the topic itself is so humongous that we should definitely appreciate your efforts in bringing everything into just 45, 50 minutes. Maybe, ma'am, there are a few questions which are
Sure.
asked here in the, ma'am, there is one question which is asked by Harris. He asks whether these lessons or these tips which have been given, have they been experimented in the current scenario?
More than we saying it's been experimented, we see this happening in the modern day management. Based on that only, we can say that this is what is being done. I'm relating it with what is happening in modern day management, connecting it to Kautilya's work and saying this is what it is. So when we look at it, I feel it is already being implemented, experimented. That's what is my observation.
Okay. Yes, I understand that, ma'am. Ma'am, and there is one more kind of doubt that Narendra raises.
Yeah, I can see that Madam traits of king as Rajashri, Rajarishi. It should be Rajarishi.
That is fine. Ma'am, maybe there is one more thing, that whether Chanakya was the guru of Ashoka as well. So this is something which they had.
Yeah, there is some controversies about this, but based on what I hear by what I have read in Radhakrishna Pillai's book and various other places, I found that Arthashastra was written actually for Chandragupta Maurya, and then it was also implemented by Bindusara, but there is no direct reference about Ashoka anywhere. But in the conversations that I've heard about Radhakrishna Pillai, he says that King Ashoka also was guided by Chanakya. That's what makes me feel, yes, he was also there at that point of time, because Bindusara is the son of Ashoka. So that means Ashoka would have been guided by Chanakya.
Ma'am, there is one last question. How can we actually use these ideas in modern classroom in the context? Yeah.
See, this is a very interesting question. In fact, when I also teach strategic management, when I'm trying to teach strategic management, I bring in some of these concepts also from our various other scriptures that I've been using. So what I have done is, in fact, I have referred to Samudra Manthan, saying that it is also used as a strategy. The Samudra Manthan is where they are using Vasuki. They bring the serpent king, Takshaka, and they tie it around the Mandhara Parvata, and they are trying to churn it around. And strategically, when the gods went to hold the head portion, the Asuras came and said, we should be holding the head portion and you should be getting into the tail. this was a strategy where they really knew that the poison that is emitted by the Takshar could be very strong and they could not sustain it. So they was planned it strategically is what I would relate it with. So whenever we are looking at any M&A, I use various of this concepts, and also this is how, see, you should be able to relate it and bring it into the classroom is what I feel.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much once again.
There are some questions, of course. I'm sorry. If there is time, I would answer them separately as well.
But I think the next guest is already waiting for the session. So, I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of Center for Educational and Social Sciences. I would like to thank Triveni ma'am for accepting our invitation and being here with so much of knowledge repository. I could see how much of reading has happened, how much of research collection that has gone in making these slides available to us. Thank you so much, ma'am, for all your efforts and sharing the valuable knowledge with us. I hope the participants have immensely, have had the opportunity to gain further knowledge. Now, moving on to the next lecture in the e-lecture series.
Just to thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot. And if there are any queries, they can reach out to me on my mail ID. Madam, you can share my mail ID. I can help them out. And of course, it's an attempt. It's a very small attempt. I'm sure there is a lot more to put again in this. Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity, and wishing all of you a happy Navaratri.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ma'am, now the next e-lecture session is about to begin. And for this session, we have the moderator, my colleague, Girisha sir. So over to you, Girisha sir, for the next session.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Ashwini. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a wonderful session we had as the first session of the lecture series. Now, we are going to start with the second session of the lecture series, which is titled A Question of Leadership Lessons from the Ramayana. I take this opportunity to welcome and introduce our speaker, Dr. Rajshekhar Krishnan. Dr. Rajshekhar Krishnan is a seasoned coach, trainer, facilitator with over 35 years of experience in training for organizational development and human performance improvement. He is a specialist in management and leadership development and executive assessment and development centers. He has worked in engineering, hospitality, training, consultancy, IT, and ITES industry as segments. Amongst the companies he has worked with are Union Carbide, NIIT, NIS Sparta, EMC, CA, IBM Right Management, and Flipkart. Currently, he is an entrepreneur and founder of Vaida Consultants, which offers services in the area of leadership and organizational development for businesses and educational institutions. He has been a lifelong seeker of spiritual wisdom and a dedicated student of Indian scriptures. He is an ardent devotee of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. He was awarded PhD in 2012 for his thesis on a study of personality traits, spiritual transcendence, and leadership styles in India by Aligarh Muslim University. He studied at Motilal Nehru National Institute of Technology, Allahabad, and was awarded BE Mechanical Engineering in 1983. Welcome, sir, and over to you. It's a great opportunity, and it's honor and it's a privilege for us. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Girisha, and thank you for your kind words. So I'm indeed very, very, I hope you're able to hear me clearly and my voice is loud.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'm going to share screen and we will look at trying to understand what the Mahabharata or the Ramayana, both of them being itihasas, have to offer. So let me just get the slide up. Give me a moment. Yeah, here we are.
I have made you co-host, sir.
Pardon me?
I have made you co-host, so you can share.
Thank you. Yes, that's helpful. So here we are. I think this is the slide deck that I have. I'm going to put it in slideshow mode, and here we are. So I'm indeed very, very honored that you've called me. And I will be talking about a question of leadership lessons from the Ramayana. And as we go through the lecture or my presentation, we will understand why I'm calling it a question of leadership. Of course, on the right, we have a very traditional photograph or picture of Ramayana. I mean, picture may not be the right word. Representation may be the right word. So I will, of course, begin with an invocation to my guru, and this is how it is. Neelara Vrinda Suhurda Sadasham Prasade Tulyam Tatha Mahasi Toyaja Bandhavena Bhamyam Stitautu Pitaram Vatamula Vasam Samsmarayantam Achalam Tamanusmaramaha, which means in showering grace, he is like the moon, the friend of the blue lily. Likewise, he is bright like the sun, which befriends the lotus. In him, in his firm self-abidance, he reminds one of his father, Dakshinamurti, under the banyan tree, who is firm like a rock. On such a one, we contemplate. Tam Anusmarana. So with this recollection of the source of all my inspiration, I'm going to present to you an overview. So this is what it is in terms of the number of slides, and I shall breeze through them so that we have sufficient time for interaction, which is what I really look forward to. So Mangalam, which is what I did just now, is one slide, and then this is the overview slide. And then I'm going to be talking about contemporary leadership studies. There are 7 slides on that. And then leadership, a question of leadership as in the Ramayana, 31 slides. But be rest assured that I will run through them quickly. And then we look at what is the way ahead, because that's important. So knowing what we have is good, but knowing what to do with what we have is even more important. So way ahead is important. Of course, Samarpanam as a consequence of Mangalam, and then Q&A. That's the plan that I have. And I am at 6:10 now, and I will try to keep at least 15 minutes. So about half an hour to 35 minutes is what I'm going to take. So with that broad indication of the timelines, I would like to proceed ahead, and here we are. So let's try to understand what we mean by, the word leadership is used quite often, and I've been in the area of leadership development for many, many years. So the considered understanding is that leadership is a life skill, which means that, just like we have the skill of reading and writing, and of course, adding, subtracting, which are the arithmetical skills, very basic skills, leadership is also a life skill. That's one way of thinking. And therefore, leadership is something that we all need to learn, irrespective of our position or irrespective of whatever that we do in life. So that's a paradigm or a thought. Then leadership is a process and not a position. And this is in the context of organizations where it is understood that you could have someone who's not designated as a leader, but does a sequence of things which are leader-like, which demonstrate the capability and the qualities of a leader. Therefore, it's a process, a set of things you do. Now, leadership is, science and an art, as they say. It's also rational and emotional, and both of these are kind of mirror image statements of each other. So broadly, people would be thinking along these lines, whether you talk about leadership of a family, or leadership of an association, or leadership of a team, or leadership of a company, or leadership of the nation, because these are various levels of leadership that we come across. Now, a popular model of leadership, actually it's from the West. It's from UK. It's by a very famous leadership theorist named John Adair. And what he says is that there are 3 aspects. Of course, the primary and fundamental aspect is a leader is someone who has a vision. Of course, what is a vision? We will analyze, and each one of these circles we will analyze. But broadly speaking, a leader is someone who builds and grows a team. A leader is someone who develops the individual who's in the team. A leader is someone who achieves a task that is set out to be done. And a leader is someone who takes timely decisions towards these 3 intersecting circles. You may argue with me that these 3 circles that I've spoken to you about are that of a manager. But then the difference is that there is a larger ellipse that you can see, which is the oval, which has vision. So when managerial actions are directed by a vision, then we have a leader. And therefore, you cannot truly distinguish leadership and management. They are kind of entwined within each other, because you cannot have a good leader who manages badly, and someone who is a bad leader may not be able to manage well. So the two are interlinked, though modern literature tends to delink them, perhaps just to present better analysis and understanding. So for our understanding of this paradigm, let's look at what a vision means. So a vision is, of course, very broadly, philosophically, is seeing what life could be like while dealing with life as it is. So this is the typical difference that you have between positive economics and normative economics, or something that is empirical and something that is theoretical. So you have to see something beyond what is happening for you to be endowed with what is called a vision. Of course, in the Indian sense, we call it the third eye, because your two physical eyes look at what's happening. But the third eye, which is the intuitive eye, which is right between the two eyes, Bhrumadhya, is what enables you to see what is not seen. And another way of looking at it is the broader sort of ellipse that we have at the bottom, which is vision is seeing the potential purpose hidden in the chaos of the moment, but which could bring to birth new possibilities for a person, company, or nation. Therefore, the ability to be an optimist is definitely a trait of a leader. The ability to see a potential of doing something else in the midst of all the chaos is definitely that of a leader, because if you don't have this quality, you're like to be bogged down with disappointment. And that is something definitely that we all do not sort of associate with good leadership. The leadership is someone who directs you and gives you purpose in the midst of a crisis. And what gives the leader that ability to lend you support in a crisis, lend you means you as a team, you as a nation, is the ability to see beyond what's happening currently. So that is vision, and we understand vision a little more clearly now. And therefore, what are the things that are currently seen by leadership theory as being important for someone to become a leader? The first step is, of course, the leader has to be, the right word is personal empowerment, but then what personal empowerment means is a leader is definitely not someone who thinks negatively. A leader is definitely someone who has courage of conviction and the self-confidence of character and personality. So the leader is not someone who is going to be constantly spinning himself or herself in a negative spiral. And therefore, the leader is someone who has crossed all immediate personality issues of confidence or of arrogance, which is also not a good leadership trait. So personal empowerment definitely is the first step. And all of us have to go through some few years as a beginner to be able to get ourselves in a position where we feel personally empowered. Now, the modern times are times of everybody working in an institution or an organization or an NGO or the government. And therefore, the next level for a leader is to navigate within the various departments of the organization, within the various sort of interfaces that are in the organization, interface between the different organizations in society. So organizational navigation, intra and inter, I would say, is the next requirement, because let us say you're the prime minister of a nation, you need to get the bureaucracy to work for you. And therefore, you need to be able to navigate the bureaucracy, which is an organization and it's an entity by itself. So organizational navigation is definitely, so you could be a very powerful, strong person, but strong persons need to learn how to navigate the organization. So this is the second sort of aspect which is marking you out as a leader. And as you master your craft, you become a master leader. We look at some aspects of master leadership, but very obviously we can see that there is a distinct difference. So perhaps master leadership is when you are able to identify and create more leaders under you. So we will look at what is the aspect of becoming a leader, which master leadership indicates. We perhaps have a clear idea of what personal empowerment and organizational navigation is. Then this is how many of the organizations, see personal empowerment. We spoke about personal empowerment, which is all about believing that the locus of control is internal to the individual. When I was talking about personality issues being ironed out, if you keep blaming someone else, your personality issues can never be ironed out. So if the control is within you, then definitely you can take steps which will result in a few things that I've listed down under horsepower. And therefore, when you have the elements of the horsepower within you, and by horsepower, I mean the intellectual ability, the character, the professional judgment, so on and so forth, then there is the mindset, which is looking forward to application of the horsepower, which by itself is a product of the fact that I am the master of my destiny. And therefore, you have a mindset which embraces challenge, partners with clients, collaborates globally, so on and so forth. And these are all elements which are immediately perhaps applicable to a global organization or to a business unit, as well as with a few modifications can be thought of as important for managing the nation and managing the politics of a nation. And you will understand why I'm referring to the politics, though the immediate context may look very, very business-like, which is what we normally study in our academia, unless, of course, you are in political science. So organizational navigation is about understanding political boundaries, the priorities of each function, how to control these boundaries, tribal boundaries, people bind together, I am an MBA or I'm an IAS or whatever. There are psychological boundaries, cultural boundaries, moral boundaries, functional boundaries, this department, that department. So you should be able to transcend all that. And at least in your mind, it's a boundaryless organization. And therefore, you need to get each of the people bound in each of these little circuits to actually think beyond. And the boundaryless organization has to exist in the mind of the leader so that the leader's power of personality, which is the personal empowerment and the horsepower we spoke about, enables people to break out of the shackles and self-imposed bureaucratic limitations. Yes? Okay. So that's about organizational navigation. And we have one more slide. So when you master leadership, we will have to look at two of the qualities that I have now kind of indicated in a typical, 4-box sort of structure. So you have on the left side, which is rising up the y-axis, the leader alignment with business or with the organization or with the institution. Then on the lower axis, the x-axis, you have the quality of, 1 minute, I don't know. Sorry, I have this, yeah, of leader mindset, development, and competence. So we have someone who is just an operator, who's just an occupier of the position because the person has low alignment with the organization's purpose and has got low qualities also. Then you have someone who has this great mindset, the horsepower is there, but the person does not understand much about the organization. Someone like Muhammad bin Tughlaq, you recall, from history, he moved capitals from here and there. So the person is a maverick, a change agent, but the change agent could be for better or for worse. Then you have someone who has got high alignment with the business, loves the business, but has no capacity to challenge the status quo, no drive, perhaps, that's required of a leader. And therefore, this custodian will only uphold the status quo. And then you have a master leader who obviously is very much in sync, as they say, with the association, with the institution, with the organization, with the nation, as well as has all the competencies and mindsets that are required, and therefore is a master leader. And such a person can shape the future, can create value and add value to the situation as is seen at that moment. So this is, broadly speaking, a summary of all that modern leadership theories generally talk about. And I can say this out of personal experience because I have been involved in leadership development, at various levels in various organizations that were mentioned by Dr. Girisha. Now let's look at what does the Ramayana have to offer, because there's a lot. As my previous speaker had indicated in her very erudite presentation, the vast width of material that's available. I think it is only our ignorance that prevents us from appreciating and looking into what has been done, because after all, a 5,000-year-old civilization, if not older than 5,000 years old, if 5,000 the bare minimum, it should definitely have a lot of leadership. Otherwise, as is said, people without vision, people without a leader will collapse in no time. So what does the Ramayana have to offer? So we'll search for leadership insights, but how do we search for leadership insights in the Ramayana? Now, as you know, the Valmiki, and I'm going to be specifically referring to the Valmiki Ramayana. So you can look at the Kanda level. There are 7 Kandas, as you know, which is Balak Kanda, Ayodhya Kanda, then Ayodhya Kanda, Aranya Kanda, then you have Kishkinda Kanda, then you have Sundara Kanda, Yuddha Kanda, Uttara Kanda. So at a Kanda level, Sundara Kanda, has a lot of insights, into leadership. Then, of course, you can understand leader by looking at the traits, which is one of the methods that is used in modern times. Of course, it is now discarded. We look more at behavior, but still the very traditional method of imbibing leadership is through the character analysis of Rama, Sita, Ravana, Lakshmana. Ravana, of course, negatively in terms of what you don't do, Lakshmana, Bharata, Hanuman, and Vibhishana. Then one can look at various episodes and incidents that can be pulled out, which indicate particular aspects of leadership that you want to highlight. Then there are people who have scanned through the 24,000 verses of the Ramayana. So you have Subhashitas, which are good statements, which are standalone proverbs, which are universally applicable. So that's one more way of looking at the Ramayana. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be presenting at a Sarga level. Sarga is, within the Kanda, you have various chapters. And this is the 100th Sarga of the Ayodhya Kanda, and it is called the Kachida Sarga. So I must sort of explain to you what we mean by Kachida Sarga before we go into it. What happened here? Okay. I should have something here. Oh, somehow, for some reason, it's not there. So let me explain the Kachida Sarga. Of course, all of us are very, very familiar with the story of the Ramayana, so it does not need any kind of introduction. The Kachida Sarga happens when, Bharata comes to Panchavati to persuade Rama to come back and rule the kingdom, because he himself feels is usurping the kingdom in spite of what his mother Kaikeyi has extracted as promises from the father Dasharatha, who of course has died and is no more. So when Bharata comes over there, before Bharata can put forward his proposition that, look, I want you to come back and rule, and I would not like to even look at the throne which has supposedly been given to me, Rama asks some questions to Bharata, anxiously inquiring about his father, of course not knowing that Dasharatha was dead, and then asking him questions on whether he has run the kingdom, because Rama assumes that Bharata has taken over and has crowned himself as a king, and therefore is running the kingdom. So in the questions that have been asked, so Kachida, so Kachit is the Sanskrit word for interrogative, why or have you. So now let us delve into the entire matter, because we'll find an entire tome. Yeah, so 100 Sarga, it consists of 76 shlokas. So this is the kind of summary of what's the content of these 76 shlokas. So I'd just like to have you run your eyes. I'm not going to read each one of them. I'm just going to get my pointer down. So these are the initial ones when there's suspicion of Bharata's death, then, talking about importance of serving father, honoring Vashishta. So still there is no answer, you see, because it's only Rama talking here. So then he asked, have you paid respect to the military teacher? Have you appointed competent ministers? And so on and so forth. So these are the contents of the 28 shlokas. Then I'm going to move forward quickly, and then, how to fire undeserving employees, appointment of army commander, and so on and so forth. We have, so just run your eyes down this column too. So we reach 48 shlokas, and then we have the 49th to the 61st. And of course, here you have various aspects. And as you can see, these are all with respect to statecraft and governance, which is a broader aspect of leadership, broader aspect of management. And moving to the very last, synopsis of the content. So I'm calling this as a Rama Bharata Samvada. Samvada is conversation, but it's a one-way conversation. And therefore, now you can appreciate why I say a question of leadership, because there are 76 shlokas full of questions which have been asked on these various aspects. So far, it looks very, very generic, and we will delve into a few of these shlokas in greater detail so that we get a taste of what it means. So the theme division that I have kind of put, in the context of this presentation, as well as where are we on strategy? Yes. So I have taken these three themes and then have collected a few shlokas. So what was given early in the synopsis was just a direct précis or paraphrase of what's there in the shloka. But then that's just what a shloka consists of course, 32 syllables. It's got 4 padas. So there are a number of ideas. So it's just the very first pada's idea that I have condensed in the synopsis. And therefore, there is much more to the entire 76 shlokas than what you saw in the synopsis. But at least the synopsis gives you an idea as to what the wide range of contents are. So I'm going to delve a little more deeply, and I'm aware that I'm at 6:30 and we have some slides to do. So here we go. So Prashna 1, and this is not related to the sequence of the shlokas, but this is the first question on the personal qualities of the CEO. So here I go. I will chant the Sanskrit and then we look at the meaning. Kachit nidra vasham naishi kachit kale va buddhyase kachit chap pararatreshu chintayasyartha naipunam. So what does this mean? So it simply means that, do you sleep too much? Okay. Do you wake at the appropriate time? Do you spend the early hours of the morning thinking about how you can achieve your ends? I think this is the most important thing that any chief executive can have as a habit. And in fact, if you read all these blogs that are available to us, you would find that, the 5:30 a.m. advantage and all this stuff, waking up. And of course, traditionally, we have the Brahma Muhurta, which is between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., the time when your mind is most creative. And this is what is being spoken about. So a king cannot afford to miss the morning hours. And I think the previous speaker had indicated the kind of time distribution, but then the time of awaking was not mentioned. And it's very important that we realize that the king had to wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, so that the 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. slot is used either for meditation or for solving knotty problems of the state. So this is question number 1 on the personal part of the CEO. Let's look at question number 2. Kacche jarthena va dharma arte dharmena va punha. There's a little spelling mistake there. Ubhau vo pratilomena kamenena vivadhase. So what does this mean? So this means, do you pursue dharma at the expense of material gain, artha? Do you pursue artha at the expense of dharma, right? Or do you neglect both dharma and artha out of desire for kama? So this is indirectly telling us to balance our approach, that it has to be a balance between dharma, artha, and kama. And when this balance is reached, then obviously moksha, which is not running away from life, but fulfilling life in entirety, which is a requirement for both the king as well as the CEO. And therefore, the question of balance is what is being indicated in this question. So you can see why it is called Kachita Sarga. There are no answers. Bharata does not answer. So Kache Jarte cha Kamam cha Dharme cha Jayatam Vara Vibhajya Kale Kalagya Sarvan Varata Sevase. I think I kind of anticipated this when I said that, do you know the appropriate time for dharma, artha, and kama? It's a very basic question. Do you, Bharata, therefore, pursue each at the right time? So each has a right time, and I think that is we all hear about the fact that timing is the key. Timing is the key when it comes to broad strategy, but unless your own personal timing with your personal thought patterns is appropriate, you're never ever going to get things right for the organization or the nation or the institution that you represent. Therefore, dharma, artha, kama. And we know of many, many instances where people have spent excessive time on kama and therefore they are finished. People have spent time only on artha without doing anything ethical, right? If you earn money unethically, then we all know and we see it around us. So dharma, artha, kama have each to be balanced out. And therefore, knowing the appropriate time for each and pursuing it is the third personal quality of a CEO. Then we have Prashna 4, which is, there are actually, 3 shlokas here. Nastikyam anrutam krodham pramadham dirgha sutratam adarshanam jnanavatam alasyam panchavrittitam ekachintanam arthanam anarthagyaischa mantranam Nishchitanam anarambham mantratya parirakshanam mangaladya prayogam cha pratyuthana cha sarvatah kachitvam varjayastyetan rajadosha chaturdashaha. So this is a very interesting set of shlokas. So we look at what it means. So we saw the word chaturdasha. So it says that do you avoid the 14 flaws? So it's so interesting. So it means that straight cast was so developed that Chaturdasha dosha was known as something that you studied. And therefore, there is no elaboration in the shloka itself. This is from the commentary. So what are these 14 character flaws, or in modern language, what we call derailers for a king? Atheism, untruth, anger, inattention, procrastination, shunning the wise, idleness, licentiousness, not consulting ministers, consulting persons of perverted intellect, non-commencement of work in the morning. This is, of course, in alignment with the earlier quality. Then failure to launch projects already decided. Failure to keep secrets. Setting out on all enemies simultaneously. That is doing multiple things. And, as I say, war on 2 fronts or war on 3 fronts. So we are in the midst of a lot of knowledge about war because of the 2 wars that are going on, Russia and Ukraine, as well as Hamas and Israel. And therefore, we can appreciate some of the comments that are being indicated here. Then we have next, so that's about personal qualities of a CEO. Then I have Prashna on strategy. So what do we have on strategy here? So let's look at it. So Kacche Jarte Vinishchitya Laghu Moolam Mahodayam. Wonderful phrase. Laghu Moolam Mahodayam. Kshipram Aramase Karma Na Dhirgayasi Raghava. So we'll come back to this phrase Laghu Moolam Mahodayam when we look at the translation. So what does this mean? Do you act quickly and without delay so that you can achieve your ends by simple means? So Laghu Moolam, Laghu is small, Moolam is root, Mahodayam means big tree. So can you achieve a big tree? So it's like an ROI concept also. Laghu Moolam, small input, Mahodayam, big output. So wonderful to think of Sanskrit as a sutra. Laghu Moolam Mahodayam is something that every finance person should have on their desks. So anyway, so Sikachid Ashtha Dashanyeshu Swapakshe Dasha Panchacha Tribhistri Bhir Vigyate Vetsi Tirthani Charakai. So what does this mean? Again, we have a condensed version of some numbers. So do you keep important men in other kingdoms in your own under constant watch by 3 spies unknown to each other? So who are these important men? I think it's indicated here. So yeah, in the next one. So Dashapa Pancha Chaturvagan Saptavarge cha Tatvatah Ashtavarge Trivarge cha Vidyas Tisrascha Raghava Indriyanam Jayam Budva Shadangyam Deva Manusham Krityam Vimshata Vargecha Tatha Prakriti Mandalam Yatra Danda Vighancha Viyonim Sangha Vigraho Kachidetan Mahapragya Yathavad Anumanyase. Now you must be wondering why I am reading the Sanskrit part of it. There's a beauty and power in the Sanskrit, and therefore I am reading the Sanskrit. Just reading the translations, you miss the spirit of the entire thing. So let's look at what this question means. So do you understand the value of 10 evils, 5 fortresses, 4 kinds of administrative policy, 7 indisputable factors of administration, 8 measures of a kingdom, 3 kinds of power, 3 branches of knowledge, single control of senses, 6 expedients of polity, obstacles, natural and man-made. So this is one condensed question. So it's like you writing notes, and the notes need to be elaborated to be understood. So what does this indicate? So let's understand. So what are these 10 evils? Of course, we had earlier 14 character flaws. 10 evils are hunting, gambling, sleeping in the day, vilifying, addiction to frequent sexual intercourse, alcoholism, dance, song, musical instruments, and purposeless rambling for a king. Okay. Then 5 fortresses for a kingdom are water fort, hill fort, forest fort, animal fort, and desert fort. So when we talk about Galwan, when we talk about the lake there, we are talking about water forts and hill forts. And of course, we have the desert fort. Then what are the 5 kinds of administrative policy? Equity, liberality, difference, punishment. So Samadhana, Veda, Dhanda in one way, but then it has been translated by the commentator in this fashion. Then the 7 factors of administration are the king, the ministers, the polity, the fortress, the treasury, the power, and friends. 7 measures of a kingdom, as is understood in those days, is agriculture, commerce, fortresses, bridges, mines, ores, revenue, and defense. 3 kinds of power are enthusiasm, domination, and consultation. 3 branches of knowledge are religious, professional, and political. 6 expedients, this is, peace, war, biding time, causing dissension, seeking protection, and marching. This is amazing. We talked about M&A, and therefore let's look at some of the strategic alliances to avoid with what kind of kings? Immature, senile, perpetually sick, rebels, pusillanimous, which is constantly changing. Then cowards, greedy, with greedy associates, okay? Then with internal split in the team, ill-fated, irritable, ferocious persons, one with too many advisors, one with too many foes, the unrighteous, the too worldly, the slanderer, the nearly dead, the fatalist, and one who has suffered reversals. So a lot of wisdom when you look at it in the context of the question. Of course, one can have a full study in translating this in more modern terms, and we will come to what that means, when we look at how to take this forward, because this knowledge is interesting by itself, but it has to bear relevance to our own context now. So on the top management, so what kind of people do you need in the top management? Kachit Atma Samashura Shrutavanto Jitendriyaha Kulaninga Kulinashwengi Tagyascha Kritaste Tata Mantrinaha. Okay. Mantro Vijaya Moolam hi Ragyam Bhavati Raghava Su Samvrto Mantri Durair Atmaihi Shastra Kovidaihi. What does this mean? Have you appointed ministers who are self-restrained and brave, who are well-born, trustworthy, skilled in the arts of diplomacy? Decisions taken after due consideration by ministers who are learned in the polity, as well as reliable, are important for success of kings. So therefore, a leader is as good as the immediate team that reports to him or her, or the prime minister is as good as a council of ministers, or the general is as good as the lieutenant generals, and so on and so forth, that we find in organizations, both traditional and modern. Prashna 2. Kachit sahasra murkhanam ekamichasi panditam pandito hyarta kricheshu kuriya nishreyasa mahat. This is a wonderful sort of statement. Have you chosen one learner? Then we have Amat Yano Paghatitan Pitrapaita Mahan Shuchin Shreshta Cheshtu Kachitvam Niyojasi Karmasu. So you can see everywhere there'll be a Kachit, which is why it's called Kachit Sarga. Now, what does this mean? It means, do you entrust significant affairs of the state to men who are pure in thought, to those who have been tested and found true, and to those who have a professional background. Professional background in traditional times is indicated coming from a good family, but in modern times, one would call it having a good professional sort of record. So coming to all this is fine. You may say, India does have a lot of, wonderful things. Of course, Arthashastra has, the Mahabharata has, Viduraniti within the Mahabharata has. But what is the broad Bharatiya perspective? And that's what I would like to elaborate here. So the point is that in the Rajarishi tradition, which is spoken about, in the tradition of the Dharmic kings who have always been held to be at a very high level, we stress on Nivritri, which is Nivritti, which is self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is what is called Atma Bodha. Unless, so you are trained in Atma Bodha. For example, Arjuna did not have Atma Bodha, and therefore Bhagavad Gita was given to him. Rama, of course, many of you may know Yoga Vasishtha, which is the advice that was given to him by Vasishtha when he was 16. And therefore, he became the Rama that is famous in the Valmiki Ramayana. So Nivritti is given first, and you have self-knowledge. Then you get domain knowledge, which is pravritti, which is outward movement. Nivritti is inward movement. So when you have a combination, so what the West does is they have only pravritti, they have only domain knowledge. Their nivritti levels are 0. And therefore, when you have people only with pravritti levels, then they may dominate technologically, but sooner or later they will fail. They will have AI, no doubt. But then the way to beat AI is to have nivritti. So when you have both nivritti and pravritti, and that is to be simplified as Atma Bodha, Itihasa Bodha, Sankata Bodha, Shatru Bodha, Mitra Bodha, Vijaya Bodha, Parajaya Bodha, and Shakti Bodha, which is kind of detailing Purna Shakti. A way of detailing is not the only way. Then you have Purna Shakti, and therefore the whole Bharatiya perspective of leadership is inside out. I must be worth everything inside. And then I decide to go outside and get the domain knowledge. So the point is that the Samvad represents Purna Shakti of a particular time period, which is a Mahabharata, which is a Ramayana. I keep saying Mahabharata because there's also a Narada Samvad, which happens exactly like this between Narada and Yudhishthir, which is similar to this, but has got more number of shlokas. But that is for another day. So taking inspiration from this, you have to create a Purna Shakti manifestation required for the 21st century. Definitely, you must educate our masses, our people on the whole concept of Nivritti, which is in fact sometimes given more importance. You must also have pravritti and must balance the two. Of course, you need to live by personal example. You need to collaborate and coordinate affairs across the national arena. And you drive home the message that I think over the past 1,000 years, we kind of went into a shell and our Nivritti knowledge was higher. So we think ourselves as being highly spiritual people. And therefore, you have this whole debate around Hindutva, is Hindutva Hinduism, which is a very foolish debate. Because when you look at the Ramayana and look at Yuddha Kanda, if Yuddha Kanda is removed, there is no Ramayana. If there is no Yuddha, there is no Ramayana. So Yuddha is a part of the entire, so you must not have it as a first, so it's always Samadana Veda Danda. So you don't take war as a first option, but you definitely take war as an option when all else fails. And there, if you say that, look, I am ahimsa, then you've not understood either the Ramayana or the Mahabharata or Parashurama. So that's what we need to understand. And I think I would like to drive home the message of Atma Bodha, Itihasa Bodha, Sankata Bodha, Shatru Bodha, Mitra Bodha, Vijaya Bodha, Parajaya Bodha, and Shakti Bodha to understand power dynamics. So I will close by again, quoting from Ramana Maharshi. So the question, so this is in the Ramana Gita, and this is the kind of closure of the presentation. So among the wise, some extol Shanti and others Shakti. Which of these, O Lord, is the better means of promoting the well-being of society? So Shanti is for purifying one's mind. Shakti is for progress of society. Society should be raised by Shakti and then Shanti to be established. So you need both Shakti, which is your pravritti, and Shanti, which is your nivritti, is the word of one of the calmest sages of the 21st century, of the 20th century. He never stirred out of Tiruvannamalai, of course. Since I'm his devotee, I would obviously say the things that I am, but it also stands to reason. So with this, I'm going to stop the presentation because I come to the end of it, and we'll look forward to questions.
Yeah, thank you, sir. It was a wonderful session. You started with a quote from Ramana Maharshi, and then spoke on various aspects of leadership, and then what Ramayana has to offer, and also you ended with Ramana Maharshi's verse. So I would like to open the session for the question and answers. I do not see any question from in the chat window, but I do see a question. I mean, raise hand by some of the participants.
Yes.
I'll allow Madhu and Rashmi have raised hands. I'll first allow Madhu to ask question. Okay, sorry, both of them have lowered their hands. Okay, so I'll just open the floor for the questions.
Anybody can ask.
Yes. Please click on raise hand option so that I can allow you. Binesh. Yes, Binesh, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. Are you able
Yes,
to hear
yes,
me?
yes, we can hear you. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
good evening. I would like to ask you an important question. Can we see some changes in the national educational policy? And second one is, can you see some aspects of Indian knowledge system being incorporated into the educational system?
Yes. Okay. So
This is the
I'll
first.
answer. Yeah, I'll answer your question. Professor Mahadevan, B. Mahadevan of the Indian Institute of Management has been a very important sort of pivot of the Indian knowledge system, introduction of the curriculum. So it has been incorporated into the NEP, and the NEP is being rolled down where university have adopted it, and Indian knowledge systems is a part of many of the IITs, and now it is getting to be a part of what is being offered as an elective in universities. And just to sort of, I'm not able to immediately spot the book. Yeah, here we are. Just book.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a library behind me, therefore. So I'll just show this book. It's called Indian Knowledge System. It's by Professor B. Mahadevan, as you can see. And this is a book that has actually been written to help teachers to teach Indian knowledge system. It's a wonderful book. So the answer to your question is yes, it is. But obviously, it is going to take time in terms of training the teachers, in terms of the students taking the elective becoming so, because you cannot mandate it. But now definitely it's a part of the curriculum, and that's my simple answer. Yes, we are seeing it, and it's perhaps 5 years or 10 years before you would see the impact of that in the mindsets of people.
And one more question I would like to ask is why the bachelor's degree courses has been increased to 4 years from 3 years, because people are struggling to clear the 3-year courses. 4 years would not be taxing on the students. That's what I felt according to NEP.
I'm not competent to answer this question because I am not framing the policy. Or I would really not venture into guessing. So I may not have an appropriate answer.
Thank you.
So you're telling that it will take 10
We'll
years
take the
to bring
question
it
to
into
next
practice?
No. For the impact to be felt, it's being taught now. But what I'm saying is that you see between teaching and its impact in terms of attitudes, impact in terms of personality, will take some time, right? That's what I mean. I'm not saying that the introduction will take 10 years. It has already been introduced.
Okay, so impact will take 10.
Obviously. Yes, there are two other questions.
There's two other questions. So there's a question from in the chat. I see that there's a question from Varun Shah. Lord Rama's questionable judgment on asking Sita Mata to go through Agni Pariksha. Can you please talk about that? So that's one question. Maybe after this, I'll ask the second question, or should I just ask now itself? There's another question from Supriya.
Let me handle this.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Okay, so it was appropriate to the character of Rama, right? So when you look at it through a modern lens, you may agree with it, you may disagree with it. There are a lot of to's and fro's to that. It is a question which is discussed ever since the Ramayana was composed. There are people who feel it is wrong. There are people who feel it is right. But in the context of the character of Rama, which was to take every decision in terms of the dharma of the situation. So dharma of the situation, as he interpreted it, was that, look, when people, that the king is to be cognizant of every possible aspect of what the people say, even if they are foolish. And therefore, he took a decision. Now, you may not agree with the decision, and you don't have to take the decision yourself. So, we can learn by knowing what to do and what not to do. So, if you disagree with it, don't do it yourself. That's all. So, that does not mean that 99% of what is given as an example is irrelevant.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. The next question is from Supriya Patil. The question is, the people, their behavior and attitude, etc., has changed. How do we make the leadership of Ramayana era still effective?
So I would say read the Ramayana every day. Okay, you become the change. See, the thing is that Ramayana has by tradition been something which is a Parayanam. You understand Parayanam? Reading every day. So when you read the Ramayana every day, I'm saying every day means not the entire Ramayana, but you read bits and portions, and especially today is Navaratri. So usually, you begin a 9-day Parayanam, but then you can do the Parayanam of the Ramayana across the year. Now, when you keep reading the same, qualities of Rama, interactions, these slowly seep into you. So I would say the answer is ask not, and this is John F. Kennedy's response to a student who had asked, what can America do? So he said, ask not what America can do for you, ask what you can do for America. So ask not what Ramayana can do for the leaders, ask what Ramayana can do to you. It's not an exact paraphrase, but let Ramayana change you like it has changed me, and therefore I have the conviction to talk to any audience about the Ramayana. So for us, for most of us, Ramayana is a story that we heard. It is not a text that we engage with. In the tradition of India, you engage with some text. You read the Bhagavad Gita every day, not keep it in the puja room and then put some 10 flowers on top of it. That will not help you, because that is like putting flowers on a piece of paper with some black ink. Unless you read the Bhagavad Gita, it's not going to help you. In the same way, unless you read the Ramayana and read it again and again, which is why it has stood the test of time. So it is easy to preach the Ramayana, but I am talking about the Ramayana because I'm just pulling out from my library. It is just in front of me behind the library. I have this Parayanam book. Okay. I do Parayana of the Ramayana every day. So I can talk about the value of the Ramayana because I know what it means. So my advice to you is, let us not pay lip service to the Ramayana. Let us choose one text. I'm not saying you should, because India has a vast spectrum of texts, each a gem. So choose one text. Take the Bhagavad Gita. Say that I will understand the Gita left, right, and center, up and down. And then you will find that very slowly over a period of time, it is transforming you, which is why it is still available. So I would not speculate on what it can do for others. I would want it to do something for myself. And when it does something for you, you as a changed person will automatically influence others.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That was a very nice answer. In fact, you have answered this question, the next question, partially. I'll read out the question. This is from Bhagyalakshmi A. That was a very informative and interesting lecture. Could you please highlight some points regarding the psychological aspects that a leader should learn from the character of Rama?
Okay, so there are numerous things. One is, you see, Rama was very clear in what he said. He was very, very clear. So I would say, let me just try to quote from memory. I just pull out So I will just give you a few aspects about Rama, because Rama's character has got a number of very interesting aspects. So I will just take you to the very first 4 lines of the Ramayana, which is Tapaswadhyaya Niratam Tapasvi Vag Vidambaram Narada Paripapracha Valmiki Pune Muni Pungavam. Konaswin Sampratam Loke Gunavan, who is Gunavan, Kascha Viryavan, who is brave, Dharmagyascha, who is full of dharma, Kritagyascha, who is full of gratitude, Satyavako Dridavratah, who speaks the truth and is very firm in his conviction, Dridavratah. Charitrena cha ko-yuktah, who is integrated in character, Sarva Bhuteshu ko-hitah, who is thinking of the hita or the welfare of all creatures. Vidwan kahatah samarthascha, Kaschaika Priyadarshana, who is also handsome to look at. Atmavan ko jitakrodo, who is full of the Atma. Jitakrodo, who is not angry. So these are all aspects of psychology. So while I didn't answer your question directly, what I'm saying is every adjective is a psychological treasure. So the set of adjectives used for Rama are all indicators of traits. Now we know in fact we talk about traits. Coming to your question. So if you read the Ramayana and you keep reading, Dharmagyascha, Kritagyascha, Satyavako Dridavratah, you cannot keep saying something without that impacting you. Therefore, the importance. So we often feel that, look, what's the whole point? I know the story of Rama. I know who he is. That's not the point. The point is that we find it so difficult to change ourselves because you got to keep embedding the idea again and again. Otherwise, we would all be brilliant, right? If you read something once and it fully enters into us, we are all brilliant people. But are we brilliant? We are not. Because it takes continued impact for the change to happen. And therefore, the Indian tradition is you read it again and again, again and again, again and again, till it enters into you, and you won't even know it has entered into you, but others will feel it.
Sir, it's almost 7 o'clock and we have received a lot of questions.
No, I'm happy to answer them.
But we also see some of the
Yeah, we can take a
participants
couple
have,
of questions.
yeah, we can take a couple of questions. We can ask Bala Narasimhan, who has raised hand. I'll allow him to talk. Mr. Bala Narasimhan, you can ask the question.
It's not Mr., it's Mrs. That's
Oh,
okay. The
sorry.
name is confusing.
I'm
Good
sorry.
evening,
I'm sorry.
sir, and wonderful to hear from you after such a long time. I don't know if you remember me. I worked with you in IBM.
Of course, I know. The moment I saw, I was wondering whether it's the same Bala. So tell me, Bala.
Wonderful, wonderful session, and I'm, really so interested. And one thing that I wanted to ask, the Pravritti Marga and Nivritti Marga that you had actually mentioned. So when you align that, when you balance that, the x-axis and the y-axis, when you actually do that, so is there like you made a list of all those,
Bodhas,
in terms of, the, what you call the Atma Bodha, Itihasa Bodha, Sankata Bodha, and those lists that you had listed it. So my question is, do you have, like, if you want to attain Purna Shakti, basically, so is there specific behaviors or competencies, that you can, things that you need to know specifically? Do you have like a detail thing, or do you have sessions that we can actually enroll, that we can understand how we can actually integrate some of these? Like you said, it takes a lot of practice, and I agree with you. One is reading, two is consistently reading, which kind of helps you integrate some of those principles and help you in that. So is there anything that you do on a as sessions that we can actually enroll, or is there any material that I can actually access, that I can
So actually it's like this. You see, the Indian tradition of learning is Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Shravana is to listen or to read.
Yes,
Manana
Shravana, Kirtana, Mana, yes.
And Nididhyasanam is reflecting so sharply. It is what we call in our learning as moving from unconscious incompetence to
conscious competence.
Yeah, all the way up to unconscious competence. So Nididhyasana is unconscious competence. Okay. And therefore that happens by continued exposure and by continued trying. So Indian tradition, so let me just try to split the whole matter. In India, we distinguish now. Typically, the Western learning that you and me are very familiar with is all about seeing something and doing. So,
Yes.
is seeing something and doing smarter, or is hearing something and doing smarter? So in the Indian tradition, see, if I see that honesty is being rewarded, I see it, then I
Yes.
yeah, honesty. But if I'm more intelligent, I hear from someone wiser that honesty is the best policy. I don't have to see a thief being flayed to know that dishonesty is a bad policy. So in
Exactly. Yeah.
tradition, Shravanam is more important rather than vision. So seeing
Okay.
is not believing, hearing is believing. Of course, what you are told is very important. So
Mhm.
reflecting on what you hear is the way we change in the Indian tradition. And to make the mind pliable to change, you meditate. So
Okay.
dhanam is important. So a list of qualities. So in the Indian tradition, as you keep doing dhanam, everybody's inner self, which is the bastion of all good qualities, starts vibrating.
Yeah. Starts
And
when.
therefore, the quality comes into you. You don't have to consciously. I mean, you and me know. I mean, sorry, for the others, since we have worked together, I'm taking certain things for granted. So, giving a list of qualities and getting people to want to change will never happen.
Okay. Okay.
You have to make them meditate, and then the quality emerges, because all good qualities are resident in the Atman.
Okay.
So, reach the Atman, and the Atman will give you the qualities that is required. This is the Indian tradition.
Yeah.
That's
You'll
why we
mature
say
in the
Atmavan.
process, you're saying. Okay.
So, Atmavan will have the qualities required.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Sure.
injecting the qualities from outside, qualities emerge from inside.
Oh, okay. Okay. Understand. Get it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So there are some questions related to dharma. I think there are 3 participants who have asked questions
Sure.
related to dharma. I think I can combine that and ask that. The first is from Anushka. She says, can you please elaborate on pursuing dharma at the expense of material gain? The second question about dharma is from Sindhu Akhilesh. She asks, sir, why people who follow dharma and follow the Subhashitams are questioned in the current world? The last question about dharma is, sir, can you please explain the importance of Sanatana Dharma in our daily life? Sorry, I'm asking all 3 questions together because I thought all 3 are related to dharma. So I thought it would be easy for you to answer.
No, it's actually very difficult because dharma is a very, very difficult concept. No, I'm just sort of, playing the fool here. The point is that, look, when we are young, we want definitions because we have not lived through the concept. So when I was young, I'm still young, but then when you are not exposed to so many things, you want clarity of definition. Whereas the living of life gives you that clarity. But the question is this concept, since Western education teaches us to question everything, we question even the presence of dharma. So let's take dharma as something that makes me integrated. So if I break the integration within me and do something, it is a papa. Punya is what enables my dharma. It enables me to hold myself together. So the simple way is for you to feel integrated. If you feel dissipated, then you are not following your dharma. So we also distinguish between swadharma. So what is my swadharma depends upon my swabhava. So I have to know my swabhava. Then I know my, so for that I do swadhyaya. I have to study myself. So this is the sequence. Swadhyaya, studying myself. So I know my personality swadharma. Therefore, I can understand what is my swakarma. What's my task? What kind of work I can do? So the answer to this is, we can never ever do anything without our dharma. The question is whether my dharma is aligned to universal dharma. And for that, the way in which you do is, when you follow certain time-tested methods which are given, they are sure to help you reach that goal. For example, pranayama is proved to be slowly capable of transforming your mental balance. Yoga is important. Of course, not the way yoga is done in the West. They have totally distorted it. So the answer to your question is, we need to have at least 15-20 minutes of meditation, japa, pranayama every day. When we do that, any one of this, whether we do prayer, we need to have 15 minutes which are devoted to nothing else other than trying to feel a higher power within myself. When we do this, in whichever way, as per our family tradition, we will find that no matter what happens to us in the outside world, we stay composed. That is being in dharma. The moment we get derailed, we get depressed. This is something that happens very easily. Because we don't have any faith in ourselves, we get depressed when something doesn't happen. Whoever said the world has to behave according to you? Just because your smartphone behaves as per your request, the world doesn't have to behave as per your request. Therefore, much of modern technology makes us believe that we are masters of what's there outside, and therefore our dharma gets constantly battered, which is why the question is correct. If I'm sitting in a forest, there's nothing to damage my dharma other than some lion or tiger coming and frightening me. But here I have every minute something happening, something on Facebook, something on Twitter, something here, something there. So I'm constantly exposing myself to all these dharma derailers. And I don't have anything to integrate. Going to sleep is not going to help you integrate dharma. You have to do something. You have to do a prayer. You have to do a pranayama. This is the unit. This is why Indian has stood the test of time for 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 years. Because we all had a little deepak in the house and you do some arati. You may not believe in it, but then, that creates some kind of peace within you. And it is that peace which helps you. So let us believe in that because it works. See, you may not know why it works. And you may call it a superstition because you don't know why it works, because we want to understand the reason for everything. But I would go by empirical observation. Since it works, I will do it. Let it work for me. I may find the reason later. So it's a question of whether you put the chicken before the egg or egg before the chicken. Do I want to reason why and then do, or do I want to do and then find out the reason why?
Thank you, sir. That was a wonderful answer. We'll take one last question from Madhu, who has clicked on raise hand button, and then we can end the session. Madhu, you can ask your question. Madhu?
No, I think Madhu is not responding.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for.
Hello,
for
sir.
Okay, Madhu
Can
is
you
here.
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear.
Can I ask one small question, sir?
So small
Yes,
or big
yes.
one, whichever one you have.
Sir, sorry. Actually, sorry to interrupt, sir. I was waiting for so many from a few minutes back. Sir, you were telling about the Ramayana, no, sir. And even little bit you have asked about, even you said about Bhagavad Gita. Sir, actually, my doubt is that, sir, even from so many days I was having that doubt. So please try to answer this question, sir. Sir, so even included you, even including you also, you are telling that Bhagavad Gita and even Ramayana also is the essence, and even it can be inculcated and implemented in our daily actual life to improve ourselves. So, for example, if we take Bhagavad Gita, there are so many books, there are so many verses, there are so many books, there are so many references. I have referred some 2 to 3 references also, sir. The shloka will also be the same, and the answer will also be the same, sir. By reading and reading the shlokas and the verses of different chapters, I'm not getting the means maybe my way of reading is wrong, I think, sir. Maybe my way of approach is wrong, I think. So my doubt is that how to read the Bhagavad Gita, or else if there is any other reference, good reference to study the Bhagavad Gita in such a way that so I can measure myself, or I can witness myself that I am changing myself, sir. So how should I study? Point number 1, to witness my changes in myself, how to study, or is there any very successive source of Bhagavad Gita maybe was written very good in a good manner. By reading it, that itself only will help me to change. And even in Ramayana also, sir. Can you please answer, sir, this question?
I will. Don't worry. I've been through the same dilemma myself. I've got some 200 versions of the Gita behind me. So what I suggest you do is read Gita Makarandam by Swami Vidya Prakashananda. Please make a note of this name. Gita Makarandam, Swami Vidya Prakashananda is a very good introduction to the Gita in
Sir,
terms
can
of
you spell it out, sir? Can you spell it out, sir?
Gita Makarandam. M-A-K. Makarandam is honey. So let me pull out the book and show it to you. It's called Gita Makarandam. It's available in Amazon. So please buy this book. It's a very good book. It's a thick book. It's a fat book. It will give you everything. And I mean, it is impossible not to understand the Gita after reading this book. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Sir,
much.
sorry to interrupt, sir. Even Ramayana also, sir. From so
Sir,
many
you
days,
first finish the Gita. Sir, you first finish the Gita, then God will connect you and me, and then we will talk about the Ramayana. Okay.
Yes, Girish, sir, you can.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Rajshekar. It was wonderful session. In fact, all of us were able to learn a lot from your session. I'm sure participants have even many more questions. So I request participants to ask your questions through email. Maybe we can forward it to Dr. Rajshekar, and maybe he will be able to answer some of them. And I now formally want to end the session. I wish we had more time. We had more than 1 hour for this, but due to lack of time, we had to end the session. Thank you, sir. You spoke about various aspects of the leadership, as well as how Ramayana, what Ramayana could offer. You also spoke about the 3 aspects of leadership, how to become a leader, the personal empowerment, organizational navigation, mastering leadership, and so on. You also spoke about Kanda and various other aspects of Ramayana. Thank you very much. It was really, really interesting, and it made us to be more curious and learn about Ramayana and Mahabharata. So thank you very much. And any last remarks, concluding remarks you want to give, it would be really nice.
Yeah, so I think that the only remark that I have is as they say, it's a very, very English remark. The taste of the pudding is in the eating. So therefore, you can listen to me talk about the Ramayana, but unless you read it yourself with a certain amount of Shraddha, it would be just one lecture you heard from me. You may like the lecture, you may think, oh, wonderful, but it will all go down the drain tomorrow. So for it not to go down the drain tomorrow, I think there must be a personal commitment to at least read something that seems to have been so important. It has stood the test of time. A novel published today is not available after 2 years. And if something that was written orally, passed on for years and years and years before it got documented, surely it must have some power. It is not a figment of someone's imagination, and neither is it a figment of my imagination, nor do I look to be a superstitious, irrational idiot to be talking about all this. Therefore, I would humbly request everybody to read the Ramayana. That's my only last parting words. Read it, it will impact you. That's all I will say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a very, very interesting session. And, I wish, I hope that we will have more such session from you, organized by SES. And I also want to mention that this is not the end of the session. We have more and more sessions coming up in the next few days. Tomorrow, we have a session on IKS sources of management and innovation in Indian startups by Dr. Ramakrishna and Dr. Muralidhar. I hope participants will be joining these sessions. Thank you, sir, and thank you, Dr. Sindhuja and Ashwini Madam, for being the for being there and encouraging the participants. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And to all the participants, we hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you, Dr. Rajshekar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Namaste. Namaste.